All right, welcome to the download again. Today here I'm with Chris Greatrex. Is that how I pronounce your surname?
Oh, Chris Greatrex. Or
Greatrex.
my nickname at school is Greatro.
Greatro?
Yep.
And what did Greatro mean?
Well, I was just, I was getting on the bus for some sports event, and the sports master called out, "Hey, Greatro, get on the bus," and it stuck as my nickname ever since.
That's how it works for guys. So Chris is the Managing Director from Artis Group, one of Insentra's partners. So welcome to the download. Welcome to sitting on the couch and having a chat.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your history. Well, you've got a fascinating history. IT is not where you started. You're an American citizen. You were in the Navy. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I guess my first career, as you said, I went to the Defence Force Academy in Canberra after leaving school, finishing up at Nudgee, and had an amazing 12-year career in the Navy. Got the opportunity to fly in aircraft and navigate patrol boats and get involved in search and rescue operations, and spent time on destroyers, destroyer escorts. And ultimately, I was convinced by one of my captains to join the submarine service.
Okay.
Something that I wasn't particularly looking to do, but it meant actually getting back to Neutral Bay when the submarines were based down here in Neutral Bay. And the first time I went to sea on a submarine, I knew I could not go back to surface ships because the operational or the battlefield picture you get from a submarine is phenomenal, and people just can't find you. So from an operational and warfare perspective, it was it was the place to be. Living in a submarine is not for everybody, and I didn't think I'd take to it, but I really enjoyed it, and I love the operational nature. And you mentioned not starting out in IT, but when you're operating with combat systems and integrated engineering systems and all the electronics involved in those submarines, particularly the new submarine, the Collins class that I ended up moving on to, there's a lot of technology involved, and so we're involved in a lot of the testing and putting to work of fairly complex information systems, which basically gave me a bit of an insight into technology, and then just the way the command process was working out, and the new submarines, the new Collins class, and some of the delays in the builds. I took the opportunity to leave at the age of 30, come back to Sydney, work at the Sydney Olympics. And because I had mobile communications experience with the submarines, managed to get a great role working around the Sydney Olympics, which then was like a springboard into moving into the IT industry.
And you spent some time at CAS?
Yeah, so initially aspect computing, and in fact, as I happened to be doing a consulting gig in Canberra, a guy pulled over when I was running around Lake Burley Griffin and said, "Look, you've got to talk to these guys at Aspect Computing," another ex-submariner who was working at Aspect at the time. So you need to talk to these guys, Aspect Computing. I'm like, no, I'm happy with what I'm doing, and convinced me to talk to them, and I did, and guys like Pete Trainey and Roger Davies, and couldn't help but like them. Decided to go work with them, and everything really just took off from there. And we then ultimately merged with CAS, and then that business was sold to Telstra in 2004. And then in 2005 we started Artis Group.
Okay, and what was the brainchild behind Artis Group?
Well, we once we'd built up CAS really to 3,000 people and had sold it to Telstra. Again, we're talking 2004. I think Telstra was a very different business then. We could see that perhaps the integration wasn't going probably according to plan. We really wanted to get back to having a probably a more nimble IT business, and so after 12 months we negotiated an exit from Telstra to be able to start Artis Group.
Fantastic.
And a lot of it was really just getting back to basics and starting an IT company we always sort of think about doing, and really fulfilling that ambition we all wanted to do.
Okay, that's 12 years ago now.
Yeah, that's right. And it's gone like that. I mean, once we launched the business, I pretty much went straight to the US at that point, because I had, for family commitments, went over there. My ex-wife is American, and we had decided once we had our first baby, we'd go to the States. And so we sort of set up the basic frameworks at Artis Group. I went over to the US to work for a company over there where we wanted to take Artis Group. So I got a chance to do that, work with an amazing company over there. It was actually based out of upstate New York, and I opened up their New York City operations, and then that went really well, particularly during a time of the GFC. We were ultimately acquired by another larger company, like a $1.6 billion
Somewhat larger.
SI company. and they continue to grow. Serious Computer Solutions, they're about to buy Forsyth Consulting, in fact. And that was also another great experience, and I fell in love with New York. I mean, I maintain the house over there still.
Right.
I don't do the international travel you do, but I do like to get back there when I can. And having that dual citizenship and having my kids with dual citizenship means I'll probably continue to have that relationship with the US down the track, but probably more specifically New York and the Northeast.
And so Artis Group operating there as well?
No, we'd done some business over there, so we had actually done some work with the US Navy. In fact, we were doing work with the US Navy before we were able to do any work with our own Defence Department, which is a bit of a shame. And I've brought that story up a few times with various defence procurement people. But we are now doing work, with defence today. But really, most of the export work we do, or the only other export work we do today, so it would be to Thailand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been in the game for a little while. It's interesting as well. One of the things you mentioned, which I'm going to talk to you off camera about, is a little bit about flying planes, because that's a passion of mine.
Right.
So you've done in the air and under the ocean as well, all in the Navy, which is quite interesting. But having been in the industry, having worked in the Channel for a while, what are you seeing now as sort of some of the emerging trends that organisations like yourselves and resellers, etc., are being faced with at the moment?
Yeah, look, I mean, I look at Artis Group when we formed it in 2005 to what it is now. It's drastically different, right? And I think all our businesses have changed. And we started off as IBM hardware resellers. Right? We were selling iSeries upgrades. We were getting into some IBM software. But what really grew for us was application development type work, software development work. Really, despite our best efforts, this practice was growing, right? And so we ended up started to capitalise on that a bit, and as time went on, a lot of the commodity product margins were shrinking, as we all know. And 7 years ago, we actually got an opportunity to actually sell the infrastructure part of the business for us to really double down on the application space. And so really the last 6-7 years, applications have been our focus. Again, the market keeps moving and it keeps changing, whereby it's not enough just to be a generalist application development partner, right? You need to be able to specialise, you need to be able to align yourself with certain vendors, and you need to specialise more and more in the industry sectors that you want to operate in. You need to be able to speak the language of those industry sectors. And so increasingly there's more of this hyper verticalisation in the industries, right? And the other bit we've known just with the technology in the software space is more and more of it is now the packaged applications, configuring things like Dynamics, for example. And so for us, Dynamics 365 is now our top focus as a company, right? And we see that sort of continue to go. And by doing that and by focusing heavily in one particular area and even specific industries, when clients have other requirements, you've got to then partner with people that can help them. And this is what, I think one of the big trends we're seeing is, this need to partner more and more. And I think more of us are starting to specialise more and more in certain areas. And I think it's a benefit for our clients whereby we can do this very, very well for them, better than anybody else. And if you want that done, we're going to bring in this trusted partner that can do that piece of the puzzle as well. Rather than try to be a generalist, rather try to maintain that bench if and when that work does come up. Our view is we're going to continue to focus really heavily in that Dynamics 365 space. No one's going to do it better than us. And when we need to migrate people onto, say, Office 365, whatever, then we're going to go to partners like Insentra to get that job done.
Understood. And tell me, it's a question I ask a lot of people who do partner with us. When you're seeking to partner, what are the key things you're looking for in an organisation you're going to partner with? Because ultimately you're putting your reputation on the line with someone else having the delivery, basically.
Yep.
So how do you make those decisions? What are the key things you're looking for?
Yeah, actually, I was at a conference 2 days ago, the Ingram Micro Conference, and on a panel, and we were discussing exactly this. You guys got mentioned quite a bit, actually. It's trust, right? It's all about trust. And, I'd known about Insentra probably a good 18 months, 2 years before we'd even met, right? And I heard the concept of, partners working with other partners. And sure, we've done it before, usually on an ad hoc basis. When the planets lined up, we would execute on that basis. But we like to be able to do everything ourselves. Maybe an ego thing, I don't know. And, because we'd have a fairly broad-based practice, invariably we were competitors on some level as well. So when Insentra was formed and sort of headed down this path, there's a level of scepticism within companies like us, or me, and I suspect others.
And that scepticism being specifically? Are they
around
really
trust.
channel?
I mean, is this fair income?
Are they really
right?
just channel?
It's new, it's untested. I haven't really seen it work in that, you know, that paradigm before. And it probably wasn't until you and I had a drink at Edge Conference, one before last. You know, I looked in your eyes and hearing good stories and thinking to myself, you know what, I think this could really work. And now we wouldn't go back. I mean, we've sort of locked that part of the business down, as you know, and we're doing the campaigns, we're running things together, because you can help us get people into Office 365, which then is going to lead them onto Dynamics 365. So here's a great path, a great solution for us, where we have no interest in getting that space. We're not going to get that migration activity. You guys know that better than anyone. But as soon as it gets in the application space and work on the applications, whether it be Office 365, Dynamics 365,
that's your bag.
no one does it better than us, and that's going to be our focus. And I think that's going to be the future of our business for at least until the next big changes occur.
Well, and it's interesting, right? And I would say to you that you've absolutely got your finger on the pulse, because one of the benefits of our organisation is we get to deal with a lot of the channel, and we get to see with what a lot of the channel are thinking. And exactly as you said, when we started our business, it was very much that, I'm not so sure about this business model.
Right.
And even to this day, I occasionally get people who say to me, "Oh, when are you going to flip your model? And when are you going to start going direct?" And because it is such a foreign concept, and that's a challenge when you start a new business. Is when you take be different is what people tell you.
Right.
And I'm all about being different, but when you do be different, people go, "Oh, I'm not so sure," because that's different.
Right.
So you're absolutely onto that in terms of what people think, and that concept of focusing. We're seeing a lot more of that in the market now.
Right.
So a lot of the integrators that we're working with are doing what you're doing and saying, you know what, this is the stuff we're really good at. We will partner, we'll bring people in, but there is that trepidation. So here's an interesting question for you as well, as it relates to partnering.
Yep.
Partnering for me, I sort of say, I like to partner with a capital P. Tom Mendoza once said from NetApp, he said, partnering is not you give me money, I give you product, and now we're partners. That's not partnering. That's, to me, partnering is shared risk, shared reward.
Yep.
It's when things go wrong. That's when a relationship is tested.
Right.
How do you find, like as an organisation, stuff is going to go wrong. That's just what happens in our industry. What type of organisation do you like to work with when something goes wrong?
Well, I mean, in our industry, or probably any industry, things are going to go wrong. So none of us are new to the idea of having to fix issues and all the rest. In fact, I would suggest even in our client base, we have forged the best relationship with our clients when things have gone wrong and they've seen us step up and fix it. So that to me is an opportunity to really forge a relationship when things do go off the rails. Again, it comes back to the trust element. I mean, you've got to have all the systems and documents in place and communication. It comes down to trust, and then everyone basically, putting the shoulders to the grindstone and getting it, whatever needs to be fixed. Take the lessons learned and keep going. But there's never going to be a perfect system. There's always going to be mistakes, whether it's between us and clients or us and other partners. And it just it really comes down to the leadership in the organisation to work through those issues and resolve them.
Fantastic. So tell me, what are some of the big challenges that you see, that organisations are having right now, and where do you think that the market's going to shift to?
Well, I think in our industry, what has really, I guess, almost surprised us a bit is the rate, I think, of the change of the buyer's journey. So we've had to really change even our sales and go-to-market model. So we've invested much more heavily in the marketing side of things, in particular digital marketing. We think the buyer's journey and the change that the Forrester have predicted around the traditional salesperson disappearing, we are seeing more of that. So when customers call us now, they'll tell us they've already been online, they've evaluated Salesforce, they've decided they're going to go with Dynamics 365, they've heard we do a good job in that space. We need to tell them what their next step is. So we're not there to tell them about the product set or their options or establish a relationship. They want to talk to someone who's actually going to advance in the next step of getting their project underway and using the software as fast as possible. So we've had to change our sales model to accommodate that. Now that's been probably talked about for a good 2 to 3 years, but the rate of that change has really come along quickly. So that's been one of the big changes to the market that we've had to adapt to, as well as obviously, as I said, that hyper verticalization and really understanding that. And they talk about in certain industries. So we build solutions, say for funds managers or for healthcare, engineering companies. We need to talk the language, because the guy at the funds manager, the head of distribution, is going to talk a very different language to the guy who's rolling out solar panels, right, for an engineering solution. It's all run on Dynamics 365, but the guys we have engaging with those clients have to be speaking their language. And that's the other thing that's really, you just can't be the general IT provider. And I mean, I could go on, but more and more of the relationships now are with the CEO, CFO, and Chief Marketing Officer, less and less with the IT managers. And you can see now the IT managers that are hanging on to their servers, hanging on to Exchange on-premise, they're going to struggle in the future, right? It's the IT managers that are leading their companies into that cloud world. And I am now a convert that, we are looking at a hybrid and cloud world. Those IT managers and IT leaders that actually, shepherd and take their companies into that space are the ones who are going to survive and really manage those SaaS environments and all the rest of it. So we see that rate increasing. And
so what I'm hearing then is it's not just hyper specialization as an organization from a macro level saying this is what we're going to do and this is what we're good at, but as that comes down into the multiple levels within your organization, it's hiring different people. Right, so it's not hiring a salesperson who can go and create an opportunity. It's not necessarily an opportunity. It's now more the farmer once the opportunity's made its way to you, and someone who's got actual industry expertise.
Yeah, that first person they speak to, they don't want to have a coffee and start to establish a relationship, right? They need someone who's going to add value to them immediately about the solution, about the problem they're trying to solve in their organization, right? So when we get the call come into us or say through a response to a webinar, what have you, it's going to be from either one of our technical project managers or our architects or someone who can get very specific about, okay, what's going to be the next step here? What do we need to get to a point where we can actually deploy this project? So a lot of salespeople will be able to move and be able to establish themselves in some capability to be able to add value. But those that have lived really based on relationships, I think it's going to get harder and harder for them.
Okay. And just to change tack a little bit, in a day of Chris, right, at the office, what are the things that you're super passionate about as it relates to your business and that you would do on a daily basis as a result of that?
I think the interesting thing about our business is what you think is going to happen during the course of the day invariably never happens, right? So all sorts of things, and that's what we love about it, and that's what we hate about it, right? So, but the key thing for us is, and we've just made another hire based on this, is you got to take care of the staff. I mean, I think another emerging issue for us, and particularly in the dynamic space we're operating, is there's going to be this war on talent, right? So you've got to take care of your people. So the people that you do have on board, you've got to take care of them. And then you've got to have plans to be able to not only attract other talent, perhaps from competitors, but you need to be able to also nurture a pipeline of new talent. So you've got to have the graduate programs and all the rest of it. So for us, it's one thing to be able to deliver great solutions and have great references and all the rest of it and get that sales and marketing pipeline working. But then you need the talent to be able to deliver it, and then because then the next referral piece of business will come because you've got the right people. And what we're going to find, particularly I think as Dynamics starts to now, I mean, Forrester's already reporting it, as better than Salesforce. I think as Satya Nadella from Microsoft just continues to invest in the Dynamics platform, there's got to be a massive war on talent. And for us, anything we can do to support and help, people with those skills or people who want to develop those skills, that's what we have to be able to provide.
Yeah, and it's already a very thin market, and that market's already had a boatload of consolidation take place as well. Right. There's not that many players out there who are playing in your space with any great depth, so that's the talent accordingly.
Yep.
Very interesting. And so on a daily basis, I'm reading from that you spend a lot of time focusing on your team, and that's something I'm very passionate about. Obviously, in Insentra, one of the biggest things for me is corporate culture.
Yep.
What are a couple of the really cool things that you guys were doing at Artis Group that make your culture wonderful?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about IT and trends in the market, but as you say, ultimately this is a people business. People still do business with people. We solve problems together as people work together. So strip everything away and we're less dealing with people, right? And we have a number of initiatives in place. We have something that actually I picked up from the States. You might have seen a show called Inside the Actor Studio. And the whole premise of this show is that actors go back to Pace University in New York where they've got a big acting school, acting college, and the actors come back on stage and basically take questions and instruct the university students studying acting. So they're not promoting film or anything else. This is just about the art of acting, right? So we took that inside the actor studio and have inside the developer studio.
Right.
And so every quarter, so we've got all the usual staff events every quarter and all the rest of it, but then we have this just for the technical guys. So we get the senior technical guys to sit down and speak with the junior technical guys. This is what's happening in the industry. This is what's happening in the technology. Here's what we've been able to do with bots. Here's what we've been able to do with the Internet of Things. And basically get the senior guys, helping and bringing along the junior guys in that space. So I think inside the actor studio for us is very important. We extend that even beyond our staff, and we actually invite even our technical people. No salespeople allowed, no management people allowed. I mean, we set up the food and the beer and all the rest of it, but then they go in their conclave and they do their technical thing.
Beer and pizza.
Coke
and pizza.
Yeah, and then other things like the thing with this whole Microsoft, One Commercial Partner program and everything that they're pushing in this space, everything's about competencies and certifications. And so we're very aggressive about meeting those formal competency requirements. And so we have cash for competency requirements. So if someone's out working a client 40 hours a week and they in their own time go and get these competencies that we need for the business, we then pay good cash bonuses for them on that basis as well, to make sure we remunerate them for that time they might have to take away from their family to advance their own professional capability that also supports our competencies as well. So, I mean, they're just a couple of the initiatives we do for the staff, and we continue to evolve these things as well, to listen to staff and sort of see what we can do for them. We're very flexible working routines. I've got an entire team at the moment, and just today, every single one of them is working from home. One is working from his home in India for family reasons. Another one has got family flying in from interstate, they're working from home. Another one is interstate, and the project is going along very well. But they don't have to be in the office, or they don't have to always be on the client site. And that's the other thing is, we've got to adapt to the modern workplace and what people are expecting as well.
Okay, so just to take on that, what are the ways in which you have your team that do work remote from one another? How do they collaborate?
Well, we're a Microsoft shop, right? So we basically use all the Microsoft tools. The latest, being Teams, which is just sweeping across everywhere. So all the technology is there. It does still come down to the individual. Some people can work remotely or work from home, what have you, very, very well. Others prefer to be in the office. Particularly, you might have young kids, and you really to just get yourself focused. Sometimes people will come into the office to be able to knock out some work as well. But we're being a Microsoft shop, we really exploit the Microsoft technology as soon as we can, and that's interesting because that space changes so quickly. We're constantly evaluating and saying, well, okay, we've used Yammer for that in the past, and OneDrive, and Skype for Business. Now how do we set up with Teams, and how do we set that up? And this is actually a question a lot of our clients have as well, about how they're going to manage that modern workplace and how they're going to use those tools.
Yeah, the right tool for the right job, right? What's OneDrive? What's SharePoint? Which one do I use for that? What do I use Skype for? Exactly you say. What do I use Teams for? They all seem like they can do similar things. And now Skype for Business, as the recent announcement, is going to become part of Teams. So that'll decomplicate some things and introduce other complexities, as it always does, and create opportunity for all of us in the channel.
Yep, correct.
Fascinating. So from a business perspective, what I'm hearing is you're going to continue to maintain focus on what you do. The future is very much for you in the Dynamics 365 space. That whole AI, machine learning, getting the data, doing something with the data, expertise, etc. Got a whole program in place to nurture some talent within your business. And that's really how you're seeing the future. And obviously, it's a people business that's focused on our people.
Correct, you got it.
Right, and taking from your actors studio, time in with the actors, that's something I might actually steal from you, and do something similar in our organisation. We have tech days, but I think that the angle of having the senior guys share their knowledge, etc., is a really fantastic angle. Taking from that and just diverting somewhat, what's one of your favourite movies and why?
Favourite movies? Well, I have to jump straight to The Boat, or Das Boot, the German classic World War II submarine movie. The 3.5-hour director's cut, of course, being a submariner. Not for everyone, but a classic one we had to watch during our submarine training. Hunt for Red October, another classic. But in terms of a movie that I think is really quite relevant to us is probably the 1989 Batman movie. I can't think of the producer now, but the director. But the 1980, sort of the first of those modern Batman movies came out. Michael Keaton was the Batman actor. And for me, and it's I've got kids, and Halloween is quite big for us, and they keep wondering why I keep dressing up as Batman. But for me, when you look at all the Marvel characters and the superheroes, there's only one that is a regular guy. He hasn't been bitten by a nuclear spider. He's not from another planet, and he goes out and does the right thing and fights crime and all, just with his own wits, training, and technology, right? And the Batman movie for me was a great movie. I think the first one was special, but and it's all because I think we can relate to that guy who's going out there trying to do the right thing.
Yep.
Working out, learning how to fight himself, and uses the technology.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I just did a birthday shout out to one of our guys yesterday. And with my travel, etc., I was a day late in sending it out. And I sort of listed a few reasons. And the third reason was I was busy fighting crime in Gotham. So it's interesting that you pick a Batman analogy today. And I think you're right. One of the things I've always said is, if you do the right things for long enough, the right things are going to happen at the back end.
Right.
Always start, with that integrity and do the right things on an ongoing basis.
Yep.
All right. And just finally, before we let you get back to fighting crime over at Artis Group, tell me, if you, dead or alive, and you could have dinner with somebody, who would that be?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Not that you'd be dead or alive, by the way. You'd have to be alive, but
Right. Look, I think particularly with the naval background, you admire people like Captain Cook, Horatio Nelson, and Trafalgar, and those sort of things you study. But I think, and this probably brings the US connection in. I think George Washington stands out. For a few reasons. I mean, here's a guy who led a ragtag militia army fighting for independence against a very strong British force and won. I think that's an amazing feat, and the leadership and everything he did from the Valley Forge. And the whole War of Independence is a fascinating story to study, and of course his leadership was incredible in that. But I think what's really compelling about George Washington is, of course, they pulled him out of retirement to run for president. Obviously, he was successful. He was a hero, right? And he could have stayed on and established a dynasty and almost another monarchy, right? He was that revered. But he was the guy that after 2 terms said, no, that's enough. And we've got to hand power over to the next person, and we've got to set up democracy and all the rest of it. So he was able to do all those things, lead in war, lead in peace, but he also knew the time to say, we need to set up a democracy. We need to sort of honour all the founding fathers' ideals, and the only way to do that is to we've got to limit 2 terms. Let's go back to the elections and get fresh blood in here to have a crack at this as well. And I think I don't think there's too many other people in history that you can look at who have been able to achieve so much in the military and private life.
Fantastic. And it seems like you've actually achieved a lot in the military, and you're achieving a lot in your private life too. So perhaps George Washington's having more of an influence on you than you can think.
Yeah, perhaps.
There you go. Chris, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Appreciate you taking the time.
Lovely.